Hello, everybody. Once again, thank you for watching. It is the American Doofus Show. Don't be a doofus. I'm your host, Barry Welsh. Chris is back with us. Chris, you've been on the program more than anybody else other than me. And we've been talking about events leading up to this coming weekend for a couple of months now. But let's start globally and work our way kind of back in. What's going on in Iran?
Okay, well, I don't know if your viewers have heard that, but Secretary of State Mike Pompeo made the announcement that Al-Qaeda has a new home base, which is in Iran. Okay. Now, if you know,
Hold on just a second. Al-Qaeda has a new home base, and they're now based in Iran.
Right.
According
exactly.
to
Now,
Secretary of Defense.
No, Secretary of State. Right.
Okay.
So the thing about this that kind of bothers me is that, we've had some issues with Iran for the longest time.
Right.
Okay. So now you're saying that Al-Qaeda has a home base in Iran. And in 2015, you're saying that you've noticed this, but you're just now putting it out. Okay, to me, that's kind of a problem.
Okay, they noticed it in 2015, but they're bringing it out like 3 days before the inauguration.
Exactly. Right. So what they might be trying to do is trying to prevent when the next regime takes place, is that they would try to stop the negotiations with Iran because they're hosting another terrorist organization on their on in their territory, on their land.
Right.
So that's one thing, okay? Because President-elect Biden is going to speak with Iran and try to get them back to the negotiating table in reference to the nuclear weapons and the proliferation. So that's that could be one of their plans. Right. The other plan is the language that Secretary of State Pompeo was using was kind of more like, hey, all right, we have to get rid of this threat. Get rid of it now.
Yeah. Language matters.
Yes. So with the type of language that he was using, I kind of took it as, and maybe I shouldn't interpret things the way that I do, but the way I took it as is he was getting ready to possibly do a strike on, the home base of Al-Qaeda, but it's actually a strike on Iran.
Right. If it's on Iranian territory.
Right. It's a strike on Iran. But the things that really bothered me, even in Iraq, okay.
Right.
I kind of
embassy, to catch the viewers up, our embassy in Iraq was getting attacked by pro-Iranian forces. Is that best way to put it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So the thing is, like, during the Iraq War, you had the Shia and the Sunni, and in Iraq, the Shia or the majority, and the Sunni or the minority. Okay. So
one primarily in the north, one in the south, right?
Right.
Okay.
So the thing about it is AQ is a Sunni group.
Okay.
And Iran and all their proxies are Shia groups. Okay.
Wow.
So, it was like Al-Qaeda was actually going against Iran and the Shiites in Iraq.
Okay.
Right. Okay. I hope that kind of makes sense to you and to your audience, that those two sections we call it sectarian violence.
Right.
Were fighting amongst each other. Right.
Right.
So now you're trying to tell us that this group has a foothold or a safe haven in your country of Iran.
When the two sects are still in opposition to each other. They haven't made, there's no peace between
Right,
Sunni
right.
and Shia.
Exactly. But the only issue is like even in the West Bank, okay? You know about Hamas.
Right.
That's right. So Hamas is actually supported by Iran, but only to defeat Israel. That's the only real reason Iran supports
Hamas, because they're on different, they're both of different sects.
Right, but ultimately their end state is to get rid of Israel.
It's one of those, the friend of my friend, or
It's exactly.
enemy of my, yeah, enemy
Exactly.
of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly. So
For the
I
moment.
mean, right, but it's just support. They're not giving them a safe haven or a place to stay.
Right.
You see, so my whole thing is, all right, and here's the other one. Even in Syria, right, they're on Nusra Front. As you know, Bashir Assad is also a Shiite Muslim, right?
Right.
And Hezbollah was actually assisting them. They're from Lebanon. They're also Shiite. So the Al-Nusra Front, to the best of my understanding, was a group pretty much. I think they came from Al-Qaeda, and if they came from AQ, then they're also Sunni. Okay.
Okay.
Also a Sunni group. So now you have the Sunnis fighting the Shias again, and you have Hezbollah, which is a proxy of Iran, helping Bashir Assad. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it does. And it is a you know, if we didn't have these kind of conversations and something happens, everybody just automatically assumes Iran's done something wrong and they deserved whatever they got, not the fact that we could all be being played.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that's my issue with what he was saying.
Okay.
And even though we were training our Nusra Front, which is maybe an AQ offshoot, all right. But of course, we had our national security objectives, and it was to get rid of Bashir Assad. So we used that group because they were a Sunni group against a Shia group. Right. That's how this works.
That's how American diplomacy works when it comes to who we back.
Right. So you can so Bashir Assad would sit there and say that our Nusra group was a bunch of terrorists or insurgents. Right. For us, they would be freedom fighters. Right. And we would call Bashir Assad's group and Hezbollah a bunch of terrorists because we're against them. Right. So to every man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Exactly. Two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
People hear that diehard followers of Donald Trump totally believe in what they're doing as a righteous and patriotic endeavor. And at the same time, it is also true that 60% of the country looks at them as insane for believing lies. Both things are true. Right.
So, and we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Right. But with this whole Iran, United States, Al-Qaeda thing, don't be surprised here very soon is if Iran doesn't get hit, by the United States or Israel.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we talking, you're saying soon, are we looking at prior to the inauguration as a possible distraction? Or are we talking after Biden takes over?
It might be, it won't be after Biden takes over. It'll probably be prior to.
Okay.
Right.
What I thought.
Yeah, but the whole thing about it is they're kind of using this stuff that's going on right now here in the United States is almost like it's almost like a cover, smoke screen.
Okay.
Because well, we like to blindside people. You know, we'll throw things at them all the time, and everyone's focused on this whole domestic terror threat, right?
Hmm.
Well, meanwhile, you haven't heard anything about what's going on in the Middle East,
No,
right?
no.
I think I've maybe caught maybe a glimpse of what's going on in the Middle East with Al-Qaeda and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo saying what he was saying.
But not in mainstream media here.
No,
There's no talk of anything other than impeachment and what's coming up.
right. So
Yeah,
that for me is an indicator that something's about to go down.
good point. Yeah, it's like watch what the left hand's doing. Don't pay any attention to what the right hand's doing,
Exactly.
and that's where we're at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we really need to keep a close eye on that one.
Okay.
That's gonna be very, very significant because that is gonna have worldwide ramifications. Okay. We're
Hmm.
talking possibly another world war.
Right. Because Iran has allies just as well. The United States. I don't know how strong our allegiances are anymore worldwide. I imagine they're afraid, but if push comes to shove, I think we probably still have some allies.
Right, right. But Iran, of course, has Russia, China, right?
North
Um,
Korea.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, like I said, pay close attention to this one.
Yeah,
Very close attention.
yeah. And the same thing with Syria, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
A lot of
exactly.
all the major players are there except us.
Right, right. And you're gonna have all those groups coming in together. I mean, they're not going to attack the United States directly,
Right.
but they will attack our interest abroad. And if you know anything about how Iran and Hezbollah work, well, Hezbollah is actually one of the proxies out of Lebanon,
Right.
and they have tentacles all over the world. They're very big in Africa. They're very big in South America. I'm not too sure if they're. I'm sure they have like cells here, but in Africa, they're very, very big. Every African country I've been to, I'm always seeing a large Lebanese community inside an African country. I'm like, where are these people? Where are these Lebanese people coming from? And sure enough, 9 chances out of 10, they're there. They raised money and funds for Hezbollah operations. That's,
Wow.
that's how it works.
And just to make it clear for all the viewers, these are all separate organizations: Hamas, Hezbollah, AQ. These are all based geographically around the Middle East, but they tend to get in the conscious of the United States. They tend to get all lumped as the same thing, and
Right.
they're not. Right.
Exactly. Exactly. They're entirely separate organizations. So if they want to launch attacks on American interest overseas, that's easy to do so. That's very easy to do so. And you really don't want that to occur.
No.
So, and then, like I said, it would just be a big mess. It really would be.
And would not this be, with your expertise, would not this be a prime time for some nefarious activities from outside of the country to be launched against us,
Oh,
since
right.
we're so focused on ourselves?
Oh, right. Exactly. And these countries that are our they're not our friends. They're
Right.
looking at us and they're like, wow, they're really weak right now. There's a
Yes.
lot, there's,
Yes.
there's a lot we could do to, to further our interest overseas. We can damage them even more overseas.
How
So
could they not look at us as weak when we've got 20,000 troops in our own capital to defend it against our own people?
right, right. And I take a look, and I've said this numerous times before. Um, the in-house fighting between the Republicans and Democrats. And you have to understand that all these foreign countries watch exactly what happens with the United States. It's not just us watching, it's also foreign countries.
Absolutely.
Because we're really looked upon um, as the best in the world. That's how we're really viewed.
Yeah.
And right now, we're not looking very good
No,
at all.
no, no.
It's funny. I was talking to one of my friends in the UK, and he's like, "Man, he's like, what is going on with your country?" I'm like, I kind of had to laugh, you
Yeah.
know, and then just like, what do you tell these people? I mean, when I'm in a developing country, you know, I see, I expect that stuff to happen there. I really do.
Right.
But like, when I come back here, that's the last thing I want to see with my country,
Absolutely.
you know.
Absolutely.
And I don't care what anyone says. If you lived overseas and does much work as I have done overseas, you would realize that the United States is actually a very great country. Black,
Absolutely.
white, black, I don't care what color you are, all right? Black, white, yellow, brown, pink, blue, it doesn't make a difference. Okay. You start living in these developing countries, all right, where the education system's garbage, or um, cops just do exactly what they want to do. The military does exactly what they want to do, where people don't really have human rights.
Right.
I've seen in Africa some of these African militaries sit there and kill people during a peaceful protest. I mean, they're just sitting there, and the militaries will just come up and start shooting and killing people.
Just because they're in opposition.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen a lot of stuff overseas, and I mean, really doesn't matter the country. But let me tell you this much: the United States is a really good place to be, and not right now, not right now, but maybe up until like last year, it was a really good place to be.
Yeah.
I sincerely mean that.
And it's sad that we've gotten to the place that we've gotten as a society,
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
because it doesn't have to be this way. It shouldn't be this way.
it should, and every time I come back to the States, you can always see the changes that have been made. You see, it's different when you're here all the time, but
Mhm.
because I'm outside and I come back in, I can see the changes. And I'm like, man, I said, we're really going downhill. A lot of people can't see that,
Yeah.
but if you're overseas and you come back to the States, you'll be able to see it.
Yeah. And it's sad.
Yeah. But back on the whole Al Qaeda, um, Iran thing. I'm just telling your listeners to pay very close attention to this. Pay
Okay.
very close attention.
Okay. All right.
So then, I guess the other issue is stuff that's getting ready to happen here.
Right. Right. Now it's ran the gamut. People responding to me has run the gamut. Um, we've been talking about things happening, and then a week ago Wednesday, leading up to it, I was saying there's a plan in place for them to take the Capitol, to hold people hostage until Trump's um, declared president. And there was a plan, and now it was like yesterday or this morning, one of the two times kind of running together. Come out and said, well, there might have, the government decides now there might have been a real active plan organizing all this stuff. And it's like, we were telling you that was coming.
Right.
So it's gone from a lot of people looked at me like, man, you're really out there, to now going, so what do you know?
Hmm.
What are you hearing?
Uh,
and and from that all the way up to, I've heard this is just going to be cosplay. These are just going to be people dressing up to enact war, and it's just cosplay and nothing serious is going to happen. Trump's come out with a statement saying no violence. Part of the statement says, quote, in light of reports of more demonstrations, I urge there must be no violence, no law breaking, no vandalism of any kind. That is not what I stand for, and it's not what America stands for. I call on all Americans to help ease tensions and calm tempers. Thank you. And it's rather amusing. He calls on all Americans to ease tensions when most of the tensions are coming from just one side. I've also heard troops are going to be loyal to Trump, and they're going to stand down when the quote unquote patriots arrive. As a way of transitioning from Iran and the Middle East back over here, are you familiar with Telegraph, the app?
You know, I've heard of it.
Okay.
And I think, yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay. It's a company based in Dubai. And it's Telegram. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Telegram.
Right-wing extremists are using channels on the encrypted communication app Telegram to call for violence against government officials, with some extremists sharing knowledge of how to make, conceal, and use homemade guns and bombs. Messages are being posted in Telegram chat rooms where white supremacist content has been freely shared for months, but chatter on the channels has increased since extremists have been forced off other platforms in the wake of the siege. Is this also all a possibility as a cover for Rahowa?
And you know what? And the thing about it is, we're gonna go into that because it can be left. Everybody thinks it can be left versus right, right? But actually, you have to understand the waters are going to be muddied.
Yeah.
Once, and people are going to have their own agendas. And this would be a great place to stage, Rahowa.
Yeah. And how many churches, it was reported to me locally that churches, last Sunday, the pastors were up there praising Trump and praising the rioters. And it's often been said that if the government falls, it'll fall from inside and it'll be wrapped in the American flag and carrying a Bible.
Well, you know what? All threats come from within.
Absolutely.
So there you go. You have your answer right there.
Now, do you think there are troops that are be loyal to Trump and will stand down?
You know what? I believe so. If you have police officers, you saw you had cops,
right,
that were there, right?
Yes.
Crowd. So
yes.
You best believe you got military people too.
I would have to say so too.
Right. So, and you hopefully they don't turn on their own counterparts, because that's the other thing.
See, now that's something that I had not factored in until you just said that. But
that's
military turning on military support, those supporting Trump, those supporting the Constitution.
Right. So that's another thing you have to take a look at. I told you, it's not very simplistic. It's actually rather complex.
The first thing you said 3 words. This is getting thick.
Right. So it's going to be rather complex. And I said the waters are going to be muddied.
Yeah.
It's not going to be left versus right. If this happens the way that they're saying it's going to happen, bad news. But hey, welcome to my world.
Yeah, you deal with this around the world as your job. So it's got to be so incredibly painful and troubling to see it going on in your own country.
Yeah, it kind of hurts.
It has to.
It really hurts. The last thing I'd want to see is, my country destroyed. That's just like, wow. and then, the thing about it just makes us look horrible overseas. And when you go somewhere, your credibility is destroyed.
Yeah.
You no longer have any credibility. They're like, why should I listen to you? And you're trying to teach me about democracy and how I should do, how this police force or this intelligence service or this military should be. And look at your country. So why am I going to listen to you? Who are you to tell me anything about human rights or anything?
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. What do you think? I'm also hearing buzz from the right that a lot of people are choosing not to protest locally at state capitals, but rather are going to be in Washington, D.C. from Saturday on.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, because I think the last time we talked about um, those protesters will probably go to the states where Trump lost.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't make sense for them to come out to all 50 states. That's kind of like, I'm like, that doesn't make sense.
When I heard that, it didn't make sense to me either. It's like, why are you going to come out to the Indiana state capitol?
Right.
Indiana was 71% Trump.
Right. So that makes no
I
sense.
mean,
But
you're not going to take over the Republican governor or the Republican secretary of,
right. But what does make sense is you go to those states where Trump lost.
right.
And what they want to do is possibly try to overthrow those state capitals, do what they pretty much the same thing they wanted to do in Washington, D.C.
Right.
So
we should probably, based on strategy, we should look at Washington, D.C. definitely this weekend. Then we look at the capital of Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, and Georgia.
right, everywhere President Trump lost, that's pretty much where you're going to see things start to happen. So should we say all the blue states? Well, not all the blue. Well, they were red states at one point in time because they all supported Trump.
Right.
But now they're not.
Right.
So,
right.
Just all those states where Trump lost.
And plus the bigger metropolitan areas, whether they're a state capital or not, they're going to be potential danger zones from this weekend till next Wednesday and beyond.
Yeah, and that's the sad part, innocent people are going to lose their lives.
Yeah, because somebody decides they want to get some, and it doesn't matter who.
Right, it doesn't matter. They don't care.
Yeah.
Just like the officer that was killed within the Capitol.
He
was murdered.
Yeah.
Just
beat him to death with a fire extinguisher.
That's just that right there.
That's barbaric.
Right. That right there should show you the mentality of what you're dealing with. That right there.
And they're not going to listen to Trump saying, I don't support violence, because they know it's a cover your ass statement.
Exactly.
They know it. We know it.
Right.
He knows it. Everybody knows it.
Exactly. So that should show you the mentality, the mindset of the people you're dealing with. And then furthermore, they just arrested, I think they're from Rocky Mount, Virginia, 2 officers, I think out of the PD. And I read this online that they said one was a former sniper, a trained sniper. All right. So and here's the thing. I've told people about this before. Okay. If this thing really goes down, I said you're gonna see all the terrorist tactics come out.
Right, because they basically have been studied.
Well, not only that, you got all those guys that have been in the military.
Right, that studied what the terrorists were doing, so they know what to do.
Right. So you get those guys, and not only that, it's also the guys that come out of Special Operation Forces. I read some Navy SEAL was like, hey, it's okay. I guess I don't know if he was there or not, but he was backing what they were doing. All right. And he's a Navy SEAL. So you have to keep in mind, you're gonna have guys like that doing Maybe I'm sure they're out now, but they still have that knowledge,
Oh, of course.
right? They have that knowledge
Yeah.
to put what they want to do uh, to test in the communities. So I mean, you really got to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
And these guys are trained military, people. These aren't like just your regular street guy.
Yeah. It's just not Billy Bob from the bar. These are people that
Have
know
that,
what they're doing.
knowledge. They have that knowledge and have that skill set. So that's what makes it really dangerous.
Yeah.
And I mean I told my a lot of people about that before. I'm like, hey, you might want to get yourself trained up because the guys that are coming are going to be like 10 times above your level. You have to have some knowledge on how to stop them.
Do you think there will be active fire between military troops and citizens this weekend?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
I sure hope not.
I hope not. I really hope not. But it's hard to say. I mean,
Because once that line is crossed, it's so much easier to keep crossing it.
right. And see, the thing is, once you cross that line, you can't go back.
Then you don't go back.
Right. Once you open that can of worms, it's
Yeah.
open.
Yeah, and that's what the toothpaste is out of the tube, whatever metaphor you want to use. Trump's already done that,
Right.
and there's no putting it back in.
Exactly. So, like, I really don't know what to say.
Stay safe, stock up on things.
Yeah, you stock up. Just stock up on food for some time. And if you don't have to go out, don't go. Don't put yourself in that situation because there's no need for you to even be out there in that type of environment.
Yeah,
It's
I
just,
agree.
and when I'm telling you that, I'm talking from experience.
Yeah.
From me being, in Afghanistan, I did like 3 combat rotations in Afghanistan as U.S. advisor. So with me training those troops, I have to, I train them, but then make them operational, and that means I take them out.
Yeah.
So if we get into something, I get into it with them as well, right?
Right.
So and then also being in the continent of Africa, I've seen so much on the continent of Africa. You'd be like, whoa. I'm like, you really don't want this.
Yeah.
You don't want to see what I've seen overseas.
Here on our soil.
Right. You just don't want that. But
all right, brother. Thank you so much, man, for your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise, and your willingness to share it with us. And we'll have you back. You know that.
Well, thank you very much for having me on your show again. It's greatly appreciated.
Always a pleasure. Talk to you soon, man.
All right. You take care.
Bye-bye. There you go. It's always good to have Chris on as far as gaining knowledge and as far as gaining some understanding of things that could potentially happen, but it's always a strong dose of realism as well. And we thank Chris for sharing with us. Tomorrow night, if everything works out, I'm going to have Billy on, and Billy's not his real name. Billy has knowledge of the movement known as Antifa, and hopefully we'll be talking with Billy tomorrow night, and I look forward to that. Tomorrow's Friday. It is the day before things are supposed to kick off around the country at the Capitol and at state capitals around the nation and the nation's capital itself. So as I've said, Saturday, I'm going to be live as warranted. If there are things that need to be broadcast, we'll be broadcasting them live, covering events and giving as good coverage as we possibly can around the country. And then on Sunday, the 17th, the day that we've seen flyers posted and the Boogaloo have been planning a peaceful but armed statement of dissatisfaction with the government of the country. And we'll see how all that plays out leading up until the 20th. But again, hopefully tomorrow night we'll be joined by Billy, And we'll learn more about the movement known as Antifa. And again, thank you for watching. Again, thanks to Chris for all of his knowledge. And I love you all. You know that. I appreciate everything. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like, share, comment. And if you want to support the show, Cash App is $American Doofus, all one word, and everything is greatly appreciated. I love you all. Wish you nothing but peace, peace, peace. It's a dark world. Try to be a light. Stay alive. I love you. Don't be a doofus. It's the American Doofus Show. I'm Barry Welsh.